Welcome to the 4th episode of Brainstoryum. Now, last week I talked about the surrealist's creative purpose in making a surreality, and the week before that I explored the possibility of finding your own personal creative purpose and how this self-knowledge might inspire writing, even if it isn't an easily definable thing. Well, thinking about this drew me back to the overall theme of the unknown and how we experience the unknown, both when we're reading and when we're writing. The surrealist's approach to creativity certainly centres on something unknown and beyond our control, or not consciously controlled, that is, the workings of the unconscious mind. Well, as these thoughts have been spinning around my head, I had an idea for a writing prompt that you might find inspiring. Well, I certainly hope you will find it inspiring because that's the point of the show. And don't forget, after I've showered you with ideas, I'll be grappling for some more in a bizarre game of Exquisite Corpse, so please stick around for that. So on the surface of it, you might think that mysteries are just for mystery novels and for thrillers with plots centred around code cracking or an ancient alchemical secret that might give you immortality. Basically, the type of story that is completely structured around an unknown thing that must be found out by the protagonist. It's a great tradition of storytelling, and when it's done well, it works fantastically. But actually, I think that every story contains an element of mystery, of something unknown and just out of reach. And by focusing on this, developing this aspect of your story, even in quite subtle ways, you can really hook the reader in and grip them so they can't put it down. If we first of all think about it from the point of view as readers, at the beginning of a book, we're given certain information about the main character and the main situation that they're in, but part of what pulls us in is the promise of what we don't yet know. Maybe it's just that we don't understand why they're in the situation they're in. Perhaps they're being threatened and we only get a smattering of information about why this is, or the other person's reasons for harming them or wanting to get something from them, whatever it is. There'll be something we don't yet fully understand, but there's just enough information to make us want to stick around and find out what that is. Stories aren't just about conflict or overcoming obstacles, although those are perhaps the larger, broader elements fundamental to the whole structure. Part of the itch of wanting to read on is about what we don't yet understand. But first, I want to reel back a little bit and talk about the experience of writing, the psychology of writing, and how the unknown seems to pose a problem. It's great for the reader when you're first picking up a book and you want to know what happens, but not so great for the writer when you're first starting out on a new draft, or so it would seem. When I'm starting a brand new idea, a first draft, I find myself in this weird psychological catch-22. I feel ready to write, but apart from a few details that I know I want to build on, I've just got all these sort of vague textures in my mind, these patchwork impressions, half-realised images, feelings, faces. I don't even know what sometimes. It's just a sort of atmosphere and an urge to write it down. So I'm trying to write something, but I don't yet know what it is. And I also know from experience that I won't know what it is until I get going. I'm ultimately a discovery writer. That's just how I seem to function. My first drafts are full of these strange, hesitant gaps. It can be quite frustrating. What happens next, I ask myself? I don't know. Maybe if I stare into space for long enough, it might come to me. Sometimes, but only if I soften my gaze and whisper questions to myself or to my conference of teddy bears who sit here very patiently watching on. Perhaps the less I say about that, the better. But more often, I think ideas come to me while I'm writing, but I don't know what to write yet. Like I said, total catch-22. In those moments, it's hard to appreciate the importance, perhaps even the necessity of the unknown, the unreachable something that you're trying to get at. Because at first it seems like the unknown just presents a block, certainly not a source of inspiration. So what I normally do to push through this is to reach for what little I do know, but to try and keep an open mind at the same time. Just write a scene. Write a scene that you'll never use. Put the protagonist in a cafe, a castle, a speeding car or a park, anywhere, and just write. Whatever else you know about what's going to come up in the story, or whoever else you know is going to be in the story, try to bring them in somehow, even if it's just the protagonist thinking about them at certain points. Keep writing and just accept that you'll probably never use this scene, and that does not matter at all, I promise. Usually, if you keep going, some interesting detail will emerge from your scene, like a little discovery about who he or she really is, what they really want, or something about their past. You never know what will come up, and that's a good thing. It's the essence of discovery writing. So that's my general bit of advice for working around these unknowns in your first draft and getting past the blocks that seem to rise up when you're just starting out on an idea. Focus on the little details you do know and just keep exploring a scene, any scene. But what about using the unknown as a writing prompt? Does that even make sense? Well, you know me. I love to make sense out of things that don't make sense at all. Isn't that what Exquisite Corpse is all about? How about you try writing a character? Just decide a few things about their personality, location and situation. You don't have to be too specific yet. And try writing a scene where they're brooding on a secret. Perhaps it's a dangerous secret, something that could get them sacked from their job, prosecuted, or even killed. Perhaps they're wondering whether to confess it to somebody, or to try and get some advice about it. From whom? A counsellor, or an expert in this type of issue, whatever it is, or someone much less official, a criminal, or even a psychic. Maybe your character's debating whether to write it down, even in a code, just to get it off their chest. Or there might be a reason why they need to tell someone about it. Perhaps they have to go on the run, but need to make it clear to their loved ones that there really was a dire need for them to disappear. Actually, that might even be a good starting point, just to write a letter from their point of view, but only hinting at what the secret is so that they don't endanger their loved ones. There are so many possibilities for the feeling of the threat that hovers over our protagonist right now, and so many options for who they might be trying to keep out of their situation or bring into their situation to help. But just try writing the scene, exploring these ideas without trying to work out what their secret is. Amongst all these other emerging details, you might find yourself just describing the atmosphere and how things appear to the character since they're so nervous, how they react when other people walk by. Are they coming towards me? No, it's okay. Do I know that person? Will they think it's strange that I'm here, seeming to hide? Just see what you can write. Like I said in my general bit of advice about first drafts, focus on what you do know or what comes to you in that moment of writing, and don't concern yourself with the fact that you don't know what their secret is. Write around the secret. Character and plot are so intimately bound in any story. I really believe that if you explore one of these enough, whilst keeping an eye open for the other will make itself known. If you just keep going and keep gently building the situation of this scene or the character, ask yourself questions about who they really are, and so on, you will come up with an idea for their secret, and it will probably feel like a discovery, something you've stumbled upon. By stepping around this bubble of the mystery and letting it be, and focusing on the ideas around that bubble, the people nearby, the people they love, their worst fears, and whether the secret has been thrust upon them or if it's a lie of their own making, the secret will seem to reveal itself to you sooner or later. This feeling of mystery, of something about to be discovered, is kind of how all stories begin if you think about it. This exercise I've described is almost like dwelling in that feeling that you have as a reader when you begin reading a story that really intrigues you. It's like expanding that space of the unknown, stepping into and building a story around a seemingly empty space, an empty space that's full of potential. In story beginnings, we have to hold something back from the reader to get them asking questions and wanting more. So maybe it's time to indulge ourselves by holding something back from ourselves as we write, by not knowing the protagonist's secret yet, but having an inkling of it, and following the details that seem like clues as they emerge in our imaginations. And now it's time for a completely different exercise of the imagination. As we play Exquisite Corpse, the initial building blocks of our story don't emerge from our imaginations. They must first emerge from the socks of destiny. That's right, let's see what we've got this time. So let's pull out a describing word. This is from Biggles, the infamous Biggles. Exquisite is the word. What was exquisite? This is from Lewis D, and it is Fairy Godmother. Gosh, for a second there I thought it said Hairy Godmother. Okay, so Exquisite Fairy Godmother. What did she do? This is from, it's a Twitter ID, Gamer Writer, my good friend Tad. Purloined. So what did she steal? Did she steal or did she steal from? Maybe we can be a little bit flexible with that. See what happens. Aha! This is from Alessandro Bozzo, Twitter ID at abozp. Alex is actually the one who inspired me to start this podcast. So thank you, Alex. I owe you that much. And the word is cantankerous. Who or what was cantankerous? Again, this is from Alessandro Bozzo. This is your week, Alex. Hippogriff. So, wow, this feels quite fairy tale. The exquisite fairy godmother purloined the cantankerous hippogriff. Wow, I'm going to have a think about that. I think it's time to pour green tea. Give that a bit of a stir. Let's see if that helps. This is interesting actually, because these two characters are very different. They're almost opposites. On the one hand, you've got an exquisite fairy godmother, and to start with, a fairy godmother is somebody who brings gifts and who takes care of someone, who grants wishes. On the other hand, you have a cantankerous hippogriff. So that's someone who's rather grouchy, grumpy, perhaps mean. So I'm thinking that the only reason why a fairy godmother, an exquisite one, you know, it's even more wonderful than usual, the only reason why she would steal something from a cantankerous hippogriff is if she thought that that would do the hippogriff some good. So there's something that the hippogriff has got, whether it's a possession, or I wonder if it could even be a personality trait. Could she steal something like that from someone if it was doing them harm? Or a memory. Maybe she can steal from him a horrible memory, something awful that happened to this hippogriff, which made him cantankerous in the first place. I can't think of any other way to make sense of it, because it wouldn't otherwise be in her nature to steal something. Okay. That's a bit different. I like the mythological themes and the very different characters coming together, and people doing things that would seem out of character. So maybe if you wrote the story along those lines, you might show this fairy godmother in the first instance creeping around in the forest, following this hippogriff, this cantankerous creature. It doesn't want to have anything to do with anyone else. Perhaps the other hippogriffs, if they come in herds. I don't know. Do they come in herds? Please write in and tell me if you know these things. But so at first maybe it's confusing as to what the characters are like, whether the fairy godmother might be evil, and then perhaps later on in the story you realise that what she's come to steal from him is actually for his own good. But then you could always twist it again, and it might end up doing him damage, because we all need our memories. Our memories make us who we are. So if we were to give up or have stolen from us a memory that hurt us, that still might affect who we are, and the way that we respond to other people, the way we see ourselves and the world. It might change us and change our path, our life's path. So yeah, you could go quite deep with this and ask the question, are the awful things that happen to us, are they things that if we could give them up, we should give them up? That's quite deep. Interesting what fairy godmothers can give to you. So I'm definitely going to try another one. So new describing word. This is from Lady Karma. It's a Twitter ID. Eternal. That could mean all sorts of things, couldn't it? Could mean immortal, or just lasting forever in some other way. And this is from Dushan Farrington, also known as Quill Spatter. Spoon. The eternal spoon. Got to find out what happens to this. The eternal spoon. Fascinating idea. And the action, again from Lady Karma. begrudged. Gosh. Right. Another describing word. This is from Mariah. Complicated. I like that word. Again, partly because it could mean so many things. And the final noun. Again, from Douche and Farrington, Duke. So the eternal spoon begrudged the complicated Duke. I've got this vision of, what's that animated movie? Beauty and the Beast. With, because they have all the cutlery and everything that sings and helps out Beauty. And because of this spoon, a spoon in a grand house of this complicated Duke. That really could mean so many things. But the spoon begrudges this complicated Duke, perhaps because of his humanity, or even his complicatedness. But at the same time, the spoon is eternal. I mean, perhaps that would be the case, is that if, as an object, a solid object, it might not be technically eternal in reality. These things do eventually break down. But an object can last much longer than a human being, an organism. And yet this spoon that has eternal life in effect, because it's just a spoon, begrudges the Duke for his humanity, his complicated mind. This spoon longs to be human or complicated. Perhaps the Duke is living on his own and has a complicated history of some kind that makes him want to withdraw. And the spoon would begrudge that because he has a life. He should be able to get out there, make friends, do things. And the spoon is quite limited in what it can do. Again, this is feeling quite Beauty and the Beast. I suppose I've got stuck on that idea, I think. But yeah, there's something here, I think, potentially. Let's try another one though. I really feel like I want to try another one. Right, new describing word. Let's see. I'm digging right to the bottom of the sock. Ah, it's one of mine. Necessary. I do not remember writing that word, but never mind. Might have been a little while ago. Best way really is if you forget everything you put into these socks and it all comes out fresh. Right, the noun. This is from someone who's called themselves Life is a Gala. And this is sculptor. The necessary sculptor. Ooh, necessary to what? The story? Somebody else? Or maybe their sculpting is necessary for something. That's interesting. Right. This is an action from Lady Karma, and it's ran through the wheat fields with. Okay. Right. Final describing word. This is from Mariah, and it is, I can just open it up, starry. And then the final word Ah, this is Fraser Armitage. Apple. Oh my goodness. So, the necessary sculptor ran through the wheat fields with the starry apple. Wow. I'm not really sure what I can do with starry apple. I love this idea of a necessary sculptor, particularly the idea that sculpting is necessary, because that would be one way of interpreting that. Oh, let's have a think. I might need some more green tea for this. I don't know what it is. Whenever you have a noun, I always immediately think that I have to sort of animate it. So this idea of an apple with little legs running through the wheat fields with a sculptor, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. The sculptor could be holding the apple in their hand. You know, ran through the wheat fields with. Now, on its own, when I look at that action, I think, oh, could this be some whimsical romance? You know, a couple running through this beautiful countryside. But actually, equally, it could be a horror, because they could be running away from. Just because it ends with, okay, this sculptor is clutching an apple in their hand, and that's why it says with. But what are they running away from? Why are they running through the wheat fields at night with an apple that is starry, a starry apple? It's studded with these little lights, and I wonder if it might be magic in some way, or something that's fallen from the stars. So while it looks like an apple, it's something else, something that can change shape to look like something earthy, but it's actually something else. It's got magical powers and someone's after it. But this whole idea of this person being a necessary sculptor, I don't know if I'd quite like to explore that on its own, actually, the necessity of sculpting. But can we make this relevant to this idea of a person running away, perhaps from the Secret Service, who found out that some alien object, this starry so-called apple, is in the clutches of this person who happens to be a sculptor, unless they were the person that sculpted the apple, in which case the sculptor would be the alien, maybe. Gosh, there's so many different things that could potentially go on here. Wow, I hope you found that inspiring. I certainly found that really quite interesting. There's such a good mix of different words, and I'm particularly enjoying these describing words that are sort of at once specific and vague, so complicated and necessary and eternal. While they would seem to lead us in a certain direction about what the noun might be, they're still quite open. They could be interpreted in different ways. So it ends up being quite a creative exercise, just focusing on the describing word noun combinations. Very interesting. Well, thank you everyone who's submitted. Those who've submitted words and they haven't yet come up, they're in the socks, I promise you. They're waiting to be picked. But please, if you're listening and you want to have a go, it's very simple. Please just go to my website at annatizard.com and click where it says Play Exquisite Corpse. And there's examples and explanations at every step. It's only 5 words or phrases that you're sending, so it should be hopefully very straightforward to do. But thank you so much for listening. I hope you found it inspiring, as I have done. And I just want to say, take care, go forth, and be inspired. See you next time.